Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of KSP Wayfinders. This episode is going to be a very massive one because we're going to be doing 4 crew landings on 2 different moons, those being Iota and Ceti. Just like the stock system, Galileo's Planet Pack, which is what I'm playing on, has 2 moons for you to visit, right next to your homeworld, of course. So I'm going to be doing 2 landings on Iota and then 2 landings on Ceti. So just so I can get a whole lot of science and really propel the space program towards maybe our first interplanetary mission. I'm planning for that to be a really big one because I actually really want to have an interplanetary crew laboratory rover that'll stay on the surface of another planet for a really long time. That's going to give me a lot of science, but unfortunately I just do not have the tech at this point to even consider something like that, so it will be a long time before I'll be able to do that. In fact, I haven't even gone interplanetary at all in this save yet, not even probes, but next episode there's going to be a whole lot of that kind of activity. A whole lot of probes going on. Now, the thing is, getting to orbit a moon in Galileo's Planet Pack, the Gaelian Space Center is actually on an inclined angle, so it's not completely equatorial. So as a result, whenever you launch a rocket, sorry for the flashing lights by the way, you actually always end up in a slightly inclined orbit, which won't really be too much of a problem, except that inclination change burns are really expensive because I'm playing on 2.5 times scale. So my rockets have to be bigger, I have to have more delta V. To be honest, I really like the challenge of this, just because I feel like stock scale is laughably easy. I mean, you could just make a really simple rocket that lands on all the biomes of Mignus, and all of a sudden you've unlocked the entire tech tree. And that's not going to be an issue either. I mean, even if I was playing the regular community tech tree, it'd still take ages to unlock everything. But I have gradual progression tech tree, which basically makes progression a whole lot slower. Just because I do need to unlock a bunch of nodes. I was really looking at the IVA a lot because it was kind of bugged with the weird setup I had. You know, Iota is the first moon. It's commonly referred to as being a candy planet because of its similarity to sugar. It's like a giant ball of sugar. So the Kerbals really like this place. Kind of like how they say that Mignus is made of mint ice cream. Though it's probably just some kind of limestone that looks just so delicious. Now, the actual propulsion module of this main stage is actually powered by a weird mixture of hydrogen and oxygen, which is unfortunately the most efficient setup I've got because I've yet to unlock better fuels. I do have to wait in orbit for a bit just so I can get a good daytime landing site that's actually within communications with the Kerbal Space Center. And by Kerbal Space Center, I mean the Gaelian Space Center because they changed Kerbals to Gaelians in Galileo's Planet Pack. I'm just using them interchangeably because I always forget. Now thankfully this lander is packed with a whole lot of delta V, so it'll be able to do some biome hops also to maximize their science. Now a whole lot of things went wrong with this first moon landing. I had to revert the flight several times. First, it didn't put any reaction wheels on the lander. Then something was wrong with the science experiments. And then also the docking port wouldn't work, so I had to replace it. So a whole lot of things went wrong, but finally I managed to get it to work. Kind of thinking about doing like a save where I can't revert the flight, but I think that'll just be way too hard. Thankfully, landing is a picnic with this, and I can easily land 2 Kerbals on Iota. The first landing of the series, in fact. I'm not really sure what's with the reflections on the ground. I think it might be a parallax bug, because the configs on Galileo's Planet Packs aren't really the best. I mean, it's great, it looks okay, but it's just a little buggy in some areas, especially the volumetric cloud configs. But I mean, it's still really nice how the older mods of Kerbal Space Program have kind of been revitalized with these graphics updates. I mean, I think the volumetric clouds and parallax configs for Galileo's Planet Pack are made by a third party, but it's still great to see these configs coming out. So, we still have plenty of fuel left in the stage, so I'm going to do a little bit of a biome hop and actually go see some of the other biomes. I do believe my first landing was in the Skids. Now we're going to be landing in the Highlands, but I think this will be our last landing before we return to orbit. Just because we don't have all the fuel in the world, and this is still the very first mission to Iota, and I wasn't really sure we had enough fuel to return home in the return capsule, so I wanted to make sure I had enough fuel just to be able to do anything. So after that little bit of a landing, we actually end up going the wrong way, so I had to turn around and make sure our orbit's going the right direction. We end up burning a whole lot of fuel just because it's rather inefficient, but thankfully we have plenty left. Of course, I end up goofing up the rendezvous burn. So I do have to do the inclination change a little bit differently, but thankfully all goes well in the end. I'm able to return the Kerbals back to the main command pod and get them all home. Now, one thing that kind of bugs me is that when I was doing this, there are no compatibility patches with chemical technologies with Blue Dog Design Bureau, which is a bunch of rocket parts mod. Has a bunch of rocket parts. Chemical technologies acts like realistic fuels, kind of like real fuels, except you don't need a PhD to use it. I mean, chemical technologies and BDB work okay with each other, as is. I mean, it just lumps a whole lot of parts into the peroxide category, so it's all just they're not using the accurate fuels. But actually, recently there have been some patches for Blue Dog Design Bureau and chemical technologies. They actually allow me to use the parts together pretty well, especially in the latest version of the mod. I didn't update chemical technologies yet. It's just I've neglected to update my mods. But thankfully, in the next few videos, I actually do end up updating it. But I don't actually update it for a while. I actually have a huge backlog of footage that I'm just editing through every week. I've been thinking, since this is a longer video, I've been thinking about making longer videos to have more content each week. But if I make longer videos, like, that might hurt my viewers because people don't want to watch super long videos. But I really do want to have longer videos come out just because I feel like that'd be a really cool way to boost and get through this huge backlog of content. Actually, it's kind of a big problem how much of a backlog I have, because if you go to my Discord server, you should join that by the way, and my Gameplay Sneak Peeks channel where I upload screenshots of my, eventually will be uploading videos. The duration between screenshots and when the video is actually uploaded is like around a month. I mean, like, I've had screenshots of video footage that's been around for a couple months, weeks even, and actually just haven't been uploaded yet, which is just kind of a shame. I mean, I have all this content sitting around, I'm not going through it fast enough. I feel like having longer videos will solve that problem. Yeah, well, I should probably get back to the mission at hand, we actually do end up landing perfectly and safely. And, our very first moon landing is a huge success. Okay, I'm gonna go into the research and development building and pick up a whole lot of new parts. Just because our next missions to, eventually Ceti is gonna be a really eventful one. In fact, we've only taken 3 Kerbals to Iota so far. In fact, when I go to Ceti, I'm going to be taking 6. So, a whole lot more Kerbals, actually. Now, this is our next vehicle. It's going to be the, I forget what these missions are called. But it's my, second Iota landing. I believe these are called the Niving missions, if I recall correctly. Because I'm kind of going off of a... Actually, no, these are the Telumo missions. I'm naming these after the planets in Galileo's planet pack. This is Telumo 2. The previous mission was Telumo 1. I should probably make a point to say those more. Because I'm going to try and name these missions a bit more. I actually have a valid naming convention. Main note is this upper stage is slightly different. I actually started using cryogenic propulsion for this stage. And this engine is actually pretty interesting. I do believe it's based off of the upper stage of the Titan series of rockets, except it uses liquid hydrogen. I do believe it was an actual concept, because most of the stuff from Blue Dog Design Bureau is based off of real-life concepts, which I think is amazing, to be honest. Thankfully, I can get an encounter with Iota much easier, because I think I take launching at a slightly better time. Now, the downside with Hydrolox propulsion is that you need a whole lot of tanks just to get the same amount of delta V, or the maximum amount of delta V, because hydrogen is way more efficient than stuff like hydrazine and kerosene, but at the downside of not being dense, at all. You need a whole lot of tankage just to have the same amount of delta V. On the bright side, it's extremely light, so you can have a lot smaller first stage because you're not lifting as much. Now, I take the first part of the burn with the upper stage, but this upper stage, if you will continue the trip all the way to Iota. These engines that are running on hydrazine right now, they're actually from Alcoholic Aeronautics, which is made by the same guy who made Chemical Technologies. It's a really great mod that actually recently got waterfall configs, which is really amazing. So the whole premise behind Alcoholic Aeronautics is that it adds a bunch of engines that run on ethanol, but they can also be configured to run on hypergolic propellants if you're using Chemical Technologies. Which I think is a really good option because it gives a bit more life to these engines, so they're not completely obsolete once you unlock better fuels. I feel like this orbit's really nice, really fortunate for our circumstances. We have a nice daytime landing site with a good site of communication with Gael, so no reason to stay in orbit, time to land this thing. Now I'm going to try and land on different biomes, because if you land in the same biome over and over again, you don't get any science from it. Kerbal Space Program basically has a bunch of different biomes you can visit, you got the Midlands, the Highlands, the Skids, depends on what planet pack you're playing on. Different biomes can give you different amounts of science, sometimes a planet pack can be configured so that one biome gives you an excess science bonus. But usually you want to land in as many biomes as possible to maximize science. Especially in this save where science matters a whole lot, because I'm playing with gradual progression text tree, which makes it a whole lot harder to progress. Which I do admire the challenge. Of course, gotta take a little screenshot and Iota landing 2 is almost done. We just gotta do a little bit of a biome hop, but after this, we're going to return to orbit, and we're not going to go back to Iota for a decent amount of time. I'm not planning to go back to Iota until I construct a space station around it to get some extra science. I mean, I feel like how much science you get from a planet can kind of be divided into 3 categories. The first category is sending a probe to it. You can broadcast some science, but you won't get too much science compared to when you do a crew landing. Because crew landings, recovering the science offers the maximum amount of returns, and having a crew unlocks stuff like crew reports, surface samples. And eventually, the highest amount of science you can get is by sending a laboratory over there, or essentially at least a part-time colony. Which I plan to do with Ceti too. I've actually recorded that very recently, but so probably won't expect to see that for a very long time because I have a huge backlog of footage I have to get through. Now, Iota suddenly turned orange, which is really cool because it's actually a solar eclipse, kind of. So the light from Gael is actually being filtered by the light from Zero, the star, is actually being filtered by Gael's atmosphere, which actually casts a very weird color on Iota, which I really thought was a really cool addition of Kerbal's graphics mods. A stock Kerbal Space Program will not get you visuals like that. I really like how far visual mods in Kerbal have come. Sure, they may turn your GPU into a nuclear reactor, but they look amazing. In fact, they might even have surpassed Kerbal Space Program 2 in some spaces. Who knows, maybe some of the future space games like Kitten Space Agency can do better. And of course, just another docking and rendezvous. Trivial activities on this channel by now. I've done countless of these. It's a little bit different because I don't have any androgynous docking ports unlocked. I actually have to have 2 separate docking ports to actually work. Because that's how gradual progression tech tree works. It actually kind of like makes you use lesser technologies, like certain things like in Kerbal Space Program. You don't unlock like basic docking ports, you just unlock docking ports immediately. Instead, you have to like go through the first docking ports and then like more advanced docking ports with a gradual progression. It's also really cool how you have to unlock different tiers of liquid-fueled engines. There's a lot more, and also you have to unlock hydrogen and methalox engines separately. I really do like the challenge and actually feel like you're a space agency, like progressing through technology. Meanwhile, with Community Tech Tree, you start with like very basic propulsion, and then all of a sudden you got like those really cool vacuum-optimized hydrolox engines with compact engine bells that unfold to make the most of space. Which you don't unlock until a bit later with not chemical technologies, gradual progression. I also do like how it makes some nodes cheaper, like you don't have to spend 500 to 1,000 science just to unlock bigger fuel tanks. But you do have to spend a decent amount more science to unlock, like, say, beam core antimatter. And also, like, you don't have to, like with Community Tech Tree, the endgame nuclear saltwater rocket is in the same tech node as the beam core antimatter engine from a far future. Which is kind of annoying because, like, one's 10,000 times better than the other. Now they're in separate tech nodes, and the nuclear saltwater rocket's actually a bit easier to get compared to the beam core. I do make it a very important point to eventually unlock science labs, because that's going to make the most of our science. Now this is a Telumo 3 rocket. It's a really massive rocket. I've actually posted screenshots of this on my Discord. It's powered by a liquid hydrogen first stage, which, now that I think about it, probably isn't the best design choice. But I really do like the way it came out, especially the colors and fuel tank design. I really do like the stripes. I like how it looks. Now, this is a much more crowded mission and probably a lot more cramped. I probably should have given the Kerbals a little bit more living space. This has 6 Kerbals. It's actually using the big Gemini cockpit from Blue Dog Design Bureau. Which I really do like how BDB adds a bunch more crew command pods. Especially some more compact ones that have more crew members per space. It's really useful for stuff like landers and return capsules. I really do like this upper stage also. It kind of reminds me of the Saturn V's upper stage. In fact, I actually think the engines are actually inspired by the Saturn V's upper stage engines, the J2 engines. Now Ceti's a bit further out, a bit more inclined. It's much harder to get to, but thankfully, with all the technology we have, it's a complete picnic. Now, I do want to make the most out of this upper stage before I abandon it in orbit. Now, instead of like having to do one big burn, I feel like it'd be easier to split it up in 2, especially since we have to do transposition and docking, which does take a whole lot of time and will probably make a one-time burn a lot more inefficient. Docking aside, we can now progress and proceed unhindered to Ceti. This mission was a little bit easier to record, I recall, because I mean, they have a few hitches, like for example, like I used kerosene and oxygen for this upper stage, but unfortunately if you use kerosene and oxygen you need a lighter fluid to use that. And unfortunately, I completely forgot. So I just decided to use high test peroxide since it is hypergolic. And that simplifies design a whole lot. The Kerbals are going to have to get nice and snug just because this journey will take a decent amount of time. A lot longer than it did to Iota just because of how far Ceti is. Spend a lot of time fine-tuning this approach, just so we get a nice, really close orbit. And in the blink of an eye, thanks to time warp, we arrive very quickly to a low orbit of Ceti. But I do end up splitting the burn in half, just so we can get some science high above Ceti. Yeah, I do have to be careful with using the materials bay, just because these ones from Blue Dog Design Bureau, I need to use them, I can only use them once. I can't like restore them with a scientist or anything. Which basically, it reduces a whole lot of my science gains, just because that one experiment produces a ton of science. Yeah, well, this lander is actually a little bit expanded. I call it the Lily Lander just because Telumo has a moon called Lily. It's more of an asteroid, to be honest, but just kind of like keep the planetary naming convention alive. Anyway, I think I have to do this landing a whole lot of times because for some reason I just kept crashing the lander. Which now has 3 Kerbals instead of the previous 2, by the way. I'm using the stock, or the Making History, the Voskog Making History cockpit, which I believe looks really good on landers. Now it's time to collect all the science and bask in the rewards. Now, let me spoil like the next few episodes of the series. In a few episodes, I'm actually going to be making a surface base and space station around Ceti. It's going to be actually semi-permanent. I'm actually going to have a tanker here. I've already recorded a whole lot of it, so hopefully in a few weeks you'll see that actually happen. I'm not really sure if I should be uploading more Wayfinders or Resurgence, just because I don't really like having to balance 2 series. Because I really don't like the concept of having to wait 2 weeks just to get another episode. But I mean, I am releasing weekly still, just 2 different series. If I do longer episodes, it'll seem like more content, so it'll probably work out in the end. Also, we had a very low Delta V biome hop just because we landed right on the border between 2 biomes. Which I always like when that happens. It's always convenient when something like that happens just out of chance. Should probably also eventually get some scan satellites going on, because I did install ScanSat. I have no idea how to use it, but I really would like to eventually get some resource scans. But it will be a while before I'll unlock the science to do any of that. After a couple biome hops, we do return to orbit. With running on fumes, we have barely any fuel left, but just enough to reunite with the mothership. Fortunately, we didn't really take off at the best time, so the crew will have to wait in orbit for a couple of hours. Another thing I should mention, the Kerbal days are actually 6 hours long, but since I have rescale on, it's actually a 24-hour day. So, 300 days for something will be a little bit different than 300 stock gate days. Now, I have a weird issue here that actually persists for quite a while. For some reason, the little GUI indicators showing you where nearby spacecraft are didn't show up for me. And this actually was a recurring issue for a while. I thought it was like a weird mod that was turning it off. But in actuality, I do actually fix this, albeit in a few episodes, but all I had to do was press F4. So I'm sorry, you won't be seeing any craft indicators for a while before I was actually smart enough to Google it and figure out the issue. But I'll just consider it. I'll just say I'm doing this on purpose for realism, even though I'm actually not. At this point, we can just return home and actually get these crew home, because I'm sure they're dying to get back home, because the Tulumo 3 and 4 missions were very cramped. Meaning, this is Tulumo 3, I haven't showed Tulumo 4, but we'll be getting to that very, very soon. Now, I did burn out to get a direct return, but a weird issue, we're actually going backwards. This trajectory actually got us on a retrograde orbit of Gael, which may not be the best for re-entry, because our surface velocity is probably going to be way higher, and probably end up vaporizing our crew. I mean, even with 2.5 times scale, where everything that enters the atmosphere explodes and burns in 2 seconds, stock heat shields are extremely overpowered. Even here, they will literally get you through anything. In fact, even if you're going rather fast in a very thick atmosphere, one of the closest planets to a Gael, that being Tulumo, has 1.8 Gs, 10 atmospheres of gravity. I came in pretty hot, but the stock heat shield, I didn't have to stack them, it just worked. I mean, I don't really think there has to be any mods that buff heat shields in this regard, just because I feel like heat shields, especially with stocks in 2.5 times scale, are just overpowered. Unfortunately, that means space planes that don't get heat shields will explode and won't work in 2.5 times atmospheres as well. I mean, I do want to get to make building space shuttles, because I built a space shuttle in Resurgence that I thought was really amazing. In fact, it's one of my most favorite space planes I've ever built. I really do want to make a larger space shuttle this series. And with all that science, of course I have to buy some more orbital laboratories. Of course I need to get more science, and for this reason we're launching the exact same rocket again. This could be Tulumo 4 and actually the last launch of this video. Whole lot of moon landings. Don't worry, I don't think there'll be any moon landings in the next episode. They'll all be interplanetary probes. So it'll be a breath of fresh air compared to this. Just getting into orbit is very easy. In fact, I can probably do it with my eyes closed at this point. I mean, maybe not in 2.5 times scale, just because changing the scale of a solar system takes a little bit of getting used to. But I mean, I already have experience with upscaled solar systems. I've played and actually completed JSQ before, which I do believe is made by the same team that made Galileo's Planet Pack, that being Team Galileo. Both of which are great planet packs that you should definitely consider playing. Might want to do a JSQ playthrough later, but that probably won't come out for a while since I have some other planet packs that are higher on my priority list. Speaking of which, I don't think I've talked about this yet, but Beyond Tome actually started getting a revamp by a Ballistic Fox, who's a current maintainer of the mod. It was originally made by GamesLinks, but he let Ballistic Fox maintain it in terms of graphical updates. You may know him for his work on Sol, which is like a RSS real solar system mod, which looks amazing too. I really can't wait to see what Ballistic Fox does with Beyond Tome in terms of volumetric clouds and parallax continued. Because I would really like to make a series on Beyond Tome. Kind of like a prequel to KSP Resurgence, because Resurgence uses Celestial Harmony, which is a de facto sequel to Beyond Home, so I really would like to have a prequel that's rich with lore. Speaking of Resurgence, I'm actually thinking about ending that series very soon, because I'm actually running out of places to visit with in Resurgence. So when I do run out, I'll end the series, but it won't be the end of the save file because the 2 planet packs I'm using are definitely getting updated. They're still getting updated. So when the updates do come out, I'll actually make a new series of a continuation of the save file where I explore those new systems. Now, I did have to wait in orbit for a very long time just because I actually wanted to have a good landing that's in the daytime and also has a connection to the Kerbal Space Center. Now, Ceti is tightly locked, meaning if you land it on one side and don't have communications, you're never going to get communications. But that also means if you do have communications, you'll always have them. But the days are really long, especially since Ceti is really far out, so it orbits really slowly. So that means a day on Ceti is like several in-game days, so if you're going to try placing a base here, you probably won't want to use solar panels. Just because they will run out of power during the very long night. In fact, the service base I'm going to place here will actually use nuclear reactors. You know, I gotta stop spoiling the future of this series. Sometimes I've run out of ideas of what to talk to, so I just have to delve into the secrets this series is going to tell eventually. Now, this science collection has practically become routine at this point. We've landed this lander 4 times. Well, 2 if you've counted this exact model. It's basically the same thing, except it has room for a 3rd Kerbal. Just because I wanted to, since I was sending up more crew out in total, I just wanted to make a bigger lander. Rather successful landing. At this point I'm going to do another biome hop, this time to a slightly different biome. I landed on the plateaus originally, now I'm going for, hold up, which biome was I going for again? I was going for the, actually no, I was going straight to orbit because I didn't have enough fuel to do a biome hop. Sometimes you gotta make stuff up because you can't remember what you actually recorded. You know, just like the Apollo missions, I do have to actually reunite with the main mothership, because this lander definitely can't return on its own home. I mean, the making history Vostok and Vostok capsules actually do have their own ablager, but I'm sure they won't be able to survive the rigors of re-entry from this far away, especially in terms of a 2.5 times scale. Because I once used this exact cockpit in an actual stock scale mung mission, and I actually ended up exploding because it got too hot. But since this is returning from a further destination from the mung, especially in terms of stock scale, and also it's 2.5 times scale, so it'll be coming in way faster, this lander will not be able to do that. Also, I do believe I stripped all the ablager off because it was useless in this scenario, so that won't work either. I really like doing these Apollo-style missions just because it gives you a chance to design 2 spacecraft. But then again, direct ascent missions are also pretty cool too. Especially we can do them in a real 2.5 times scale, then you get bragging rights because you managed to squeeze a ton of Delta V into one spacecraft. You know, with the Delta V I had on this, I probably could have done a direct ascent mission. But I just wanted to reuse the Lily Lander again. Returning home is trivial. I've already done this before. And once again, we do end up on a retrograde orbit that I do have to correct. This will become a recurring thing whenever I do a return from Ceti. This far out, going on a retrograde orbit's really easy. Because the higher you are, the more, the slower you're going, the easier it is to do an inclination change and a orbit direction change. doing a proper re-entry is very, very essential here because, I mean, even though the stock heat shield is very powerful, I still get the overheating bar, which just really tells you how powerful this plasma is. And we can't forget the incident that was, I believe it was Icarus 2, my first orbital probe. I tried re-entering it in the atmosphere, but I ended up exploding it because it didn't have a heat shield. You don't want to end up like Icarus 2. Now, we're ending the episode in the Research and Development building to pick up all the science I could ever want. Especially RCS blocks, since for some reason I didn't pick that up for any Apollo-style missions. Pick up some station habitation, because I do want to make a space station very soon. Pick up some extra stuff, some fuel storage. Unfortunately, that will be the end of this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you all in the next one.